about cybersecurity because a lot of my research falls in this area. I also worked in the federal government as White House Deputy CTO for Internet Policy. In this video, we're going to talk about the federal government's role in protecting America from cyber attacks. When we talk about the federal government's protective role, it makes sense to start by thinking about what the law is. After all, perpetrating a cyber attack is a violation of the law, very clearly. It seems, at first glance, like when there's a violation of the law, people who are the victims should just go to the police, and that should take care of things. As I'm going to show you, the situation is a little bit more complicated than that. But let's start by just reviewing the main federal laws that criminalize cybersecurity attack behavior. The main law that you'll hear about is a law that was passed in 1986 called the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. The CFAA makes it a crime to do two things. Number one, it's a crime to access a computer without authorization. That's the classic criminalization of hacking crime. So if you steal a password, or steal a whole computer in order to break into it, or steal some security device in order to break into the system and steal information, get money out of it, whatever you happen to do, that's a crime, to access a computer without authorization. The CFAA also makes it a crime to exceed your authorized access to a computer that you already have access to. So that means if there's a computer system where you work, if you work for a city agency, and that agency perhaps has a database with very sensitive information that you're not supposed to be looking at, you're not allowed to look at. If you look at that database, for example, people's tax returns or something like that, you would also potentially be in violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. The CFAA carries with it very stiff criminal penalties. You can face anywhere between 1 and 20 years for violating this computer hacking law. There are a whole bunch of federal agencies, as you can see, that are involved in enforcing federal law. The Federal Bureau of Investigations, the Department of Homeland Security. You can see there are many, many other agencies, the Secret Service, a number of the sector-specific regulators, who all have enforcement roles in some way or another involving cybersecurity. But here's where things get complicated. We know that in 2018 alone, there were more than 300,000 reported cybersecurity incidents that were brought to the attention of federal agencies. But less than 1% of those reports actually led to arrest, and many fewer led to any kind of conviction. So while we have very strong laws in place, much of cybercrime is not actually directly prosecuted. So we have to ask a little bit more carefully, where does the deterrence come from? Where does the punishment actually come from? How do we actually keep people safe from cyber attack? You're certainly aware that there are also federal intelligence agencies, the National Security Agency, the CIA, and others. They're very sophisticated about cybersecurity issues, but they really don't have a mission to protect individuals or private sector organizations inside the United States. So they're not very helpful to us, unfortunately, in this regard. The next federal agency that has a major role in cybersecurity is the Department of Homeland Security, specifically their Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. The main role that DHS has is to try to make sure that all the different parts of the private sector of the organizations that are in the homeland, as it were, are engaged in good cybersecurity practices and have the right information about threats that may be coming their way. One of the key ways that DHS seeks to protect the country is through the identification of what are called the critical infrastructure sectors. So as you see on the screen, there are 16 separate parts of our society that are identified as critical infrastructure. That means we as a society depend on these functions in a unique way, and therefore DHS focuses special attention on trying to make sure that these sectors are well protected. They range from the chemical industry to the communications industry to the computer industry to healthcare to government facilities, financial services, etc. These are the things without which our society can function. So DHS organizes what are called ISACs, Information Sharing and Analysis Centers. The ISACs are voluntary gathering places about what kinds of threats they're seeing, and also sharing information about best practices for protecting against those threats. So, for example, in the financial services sector, the banks get together and share information with each other. When they see an attack on one bank, that bank may come to other banks and say, look, we just got this particular kind of attack. It may be coming to you next. And that can help all the other organizations in that sector to defend themselves, to be aware of this. There's a similar sort of structure called government coordinating councils, which gets together state and local government agencies to do similar kind of information sharing. And finally, DHS has a very active science and technology division that funds research and advanced development in cybersecurity related technologies. That's important for the long run, but in the short run, that research doesn't get into the workplace really all that quickly. So that's a picture